Alrighty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to discuss the record-setting attended spring game for OU. Quite a turnout, quite a game. I mean, as exciting as spring game can be. I mean, with Baker Mayfield there and so many, what was like 250 football alums were there. It was a great atmosphere, and we want to break down what we saw, what we think. A lot of positives, a few things that need to get cleaned up, but can't complain after only a few months of Venables being here. But before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate it. We've gotten a goal of 10,000 subscribers this year. We're a little over 4,000. So to help us get us there, hit the subscribe button, turn that notification bell on, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and find us on Apple and Spotify. Everything's linked down below. And we'll just get into it. So I guess the first thing we're going to say is we didn't make it to Ocon's. Well, we showed up, but we left a little later than we anticipated. By the time we got there, there was a standing line to get in there, and we just couldn't make it in there. So we apologize if we missed you. We'll have to catch you this fall. And we did try to look around and see if we saw anyone, but unfortunately we didn't. So I'm going to start off on one position group that I thought did really well. The running backs. I mean, Javonte Barnes, Tolly Walker, Eric Gray. I mean, Gray played pretty limited. No Marcus Major, but Javonte Barnes, I feel like, is a clear cut. He's playing this fall, and he might be the starter this fall. He had 17 carries, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and he played really well. Jose, what do you think about the running back group? I feel like it's there's a lot of depth there now.
Yeah, I definitely agree about Devonte Barnes. He's definitely going to get starting time. I don't know if he's going to be the starter. From what Dusty Dvorak was saying on the broadcast, he was pretty much just saying Eric Gray seems to be the guy as a number one, but Javonte would be coming in as their as a number two, 1-2 punch situation in that scenario. And he had a great game. I know we talked about it in the preview. I can't remember which one of us said like he could have a big game that solidifies some time in the fall, but he definitely did that. And it was really impressive, especially with, like you said, how limited he's had exposure to this offense and just being in college in general. It's not easy to be a freshman first semester in college, let alone add football and it's everything else that comes with being an 18-year-old that just moved to a completely new environment. So he's doing a fantastic job. Hopefully he continues that. And Tawee Walker, also impressed. I think Marcus Major's got he's got an uphill battle to get any playing time this year. Again, in the broadcast, Dusty Dvorak and Toby Rowland were talking about how Marcus Major still has, kind of that foot in the door to get the playing time as the number two. But if Tawee Walker and Javonte Barnes keep doing this kind of stuff in practice, I don't see Marcus Major getting very many opportunities unless we're blowing people out. And hopefully he's keeping those grades up and working out. So, because if he has another hiccup like he did last year, I don't foresee DeMarco Murray saying, you know what, I'm going to forgive it again and jump you over these guys that have been impressing, not just in practice, but during in-game scenarios.
Well, I think Marcus Major still has a lot of talent. He can still be the guy. Obviously, he didn't play yesterday, but I definitely agree. I think it's going to be a true blue committee, feed the hot hand type situation for Oklahoma at running back, because there is a lot of talented people there, and that's not even including Gavin Sawchuk, who will be here later this year. Obviously didn't play in this game. He's still doing high school stuff, but so there's a lot of mouths to feed. I thought Tawee Walker had a hell of a day. I think if anybody, Javonte Barnes obviously had a good game, but I mean, we've been on him for a while now. I've been saying I think Javonte Barnes is going to get significant playing time as a freshman all offseason since we started talking about him. And obviously yesterday he showed that he probably will. There's no reason not to, but I think Tawee Walker, as far as the running backs go, really gave himself a really good opportunity yesterday to show the coaches and, hey, I should probably play too. He's a bulldozer kind of guy. I mean, he was running through people. He had one hiccup, really costly. You can't do it in a game, where he fumbled the ball at the goal line. I think Justin Harrington went and punched it out like right at the 1 yard line. That you can't do that, but outside of that one mistake, he really was dialed in all game. He was running through people, running over people. I think Tally Walker really showed that he should be in this rotation, and I think it will be a true a running back by committee this whole season for us, because I don't know that you can really look at this roster and say, like, this is our guy. He's going to get 50% of the carries, 60% of the carries. I think it's going to be who's playing the best, because there's 4 guys I think that are pretty damn good.
Yeah, Tolly Walker came in, when he transferred in out of, as junior college in California. He was kind of a little more of like an afterthought, and no one really thought too much of him coming in. It was always good to get another running back on the roster, but man, the way he's been practicing the spring and played in that spring game, he definitely has a reason to say, hey, I need some snaps this fall. And barring some sort of injury to someone in front of him, he's going to get a lot of snaps if something like that happens. I mean, Marcus Major, he's good, but there's a lot of depth in that running back room now. Last year, I felt like one guy goes down, and then who's going to be running the football? Now, if someone goes down, hopefully not, but we've got great depth there.
Yep,
so
availability is the best ability, and he just hasn't shown that in the last year.
That is the truth. Yeah. I mean, if you're not available to play, you're going to get jumped. I mean, it's just unfortunate. That's just the nature of the beast. So I thought that was really good. Another big leading story was the attendance. Was it 75,360 people? Mecca of college football. Brandon, would you like to tee off on what you thought?
I absolutely would love to talk about this matter. I'm glad we brought it up, and we'll try to keep it short and get back to the spring game. But my favorite part of yesterday is obviously me and you were at the game, bro. Jose and my brother Jerry were watching. Jose lives in Arizona. Obviously, my brother's in Tulsa, so they were watching together. But they were giving us updates of what's going on throughout. And we got a text from Jerry about the attendance at the USC game, and that it was horrible, and I couldn't wait to see. And then I saw, the screen grabs and the photos about, I think there was 7 people total in attendance at the USC spring game at what should be the Mecca of college football. So then we tweeted about the real Mecca, which 75,000 plus show up for a spring game, which is wild. That's what a fan base should do. But my favorite thing about it is these USC fans on our Twitter talking about, they're defending the fact that 7 people showed up because it was 75 degrees outside, guys, and they have beaches in Los Angeles and they have palm trees. So like some of the most iconic, some dumbass actually said some of the most iconic fan bases, or the most iconic teams have no turnouts. And I read that and I was like, is this real? Like, this dude's really trying to say that since it's 75 and sunny there, that it doesn't matter that people don't show up. Like, oh my God, their fan base is a joke. Lincoln Riley is a joke. I can believe, but it's the greatest thing ever that literally 7 people showed up to watch Lincoln Riley's debut, and you have 75,000 to watch Brent Venables' debut. You have 250 alumni to watch Brent Venables' debut. I'm sure they didn't have any alumni there. And the 7 people that were there when the game started probably didn't make it all the way through. So I bet you by the second or third quarter of that spring game, there's probably 0 people in the stands. Lincoln Riley could probably hear everything he's yelling. God, that was garbage. That's fantastic, though. I mean, really, really a great showing for USC. You guys nailed it.
I know you guys want to talk about USC, but I think the cool thing that I liked comparing the coaching staffs is Lincoln Riley, and he did this at Oklahoma and he did it at USC, is he's calling the plays for the offense and Grinch is calling the plays for the defense. They've kept the same roles. They didn't learn anything. They're not trying to improve upon what they've done. They're just trying to do the same thing and hoping that it gives different results at a new place. While Venables gave the opportunity to be the play caller and the head coach for these spring game squads to assistant coaches. They're looking to progress their career as well, and an opportunity like that is big time for some of these guys. And he was like the CEO, and he's watching everything on the field. He's right behind the quarterback, seeing little things. He's calling players over. Like, obviously it stops the game for a second, but he's calling players over. Like, this is what you need to do. This is the mistake that you made. he's pointing things out and he's trying to teach as the game is going on, because at the end of the day, the spring game is a learning experience for everyone. And that's something that I was talking about with Brandon's younger brother, Jerry. Some of the camera angles were god awful on the broadcast, but it's because it's a new probably some new camera people on there. It's a practice for them, practice for the refs, practice for the coaches, for the players. Like, it's just all supposed to be learning experiences for everyone. And this coaching staff was actually actively teaching throughout the course of the game. Unlike Lincoln Riley, while, whatever your opinion may be of him as a person, his coaching hasn't changed. He's not trying to improve upon what he did before. Again, he's just trying to do the same thing and hoping that because he's in California and potentially a little bit more money, it gets him somewhere further, which, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's likely, because if it's the same defense, he's just going to get absolutely destroyed by a team like Alabama or Clemson, who can prevent his offense from scoring like 3 or 4 drives, and then they just take the ball and score a field goal or score a touchdown, and all they have to do is, at the end of the day, winning by 1 or 50 is the same thing. You lose, and you just end your season the same way you ended before.
I just have one more thing before we move on to the sorry ass USC fans commenting dumb shit about beaches. I guarantee you, Sooner Nation, if we had beaches in 80-degree weather, we're still showing up to the spring game. You would think you could take 2 hours out of your beach activities / sun, whatever their excuses were about all the stuff you can do in LA. You would think they could take 2 hours out of their day to go watch the debut of the guy that they're all so high on and talking about how he's a legend already and how he's the GOAT already. You would think, with the way they talk about him and how high they are on him already, that they would take 2 hours out of their busy day to see his debut. You should be excited, but I'm sure Lincoln Riley appreciates the 7 people total who did. He probably wouldn't shook hands of every single one of them, because there's only 7 people there. It's not very hard to do. So I think I'm sure he's proud of the 7 people who showed up. And the other ones, I mean, if you guys are such diehard USC fans, you gotta get there, despite the beaches. Take a couple hour break, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they might have had a few more people than 7 people, but they had a record-setting crowd, and their record-setting crowd is less than half of what OU had yesterday.
You're telling me that picture that is circulating everywhere, that's a record-setting crowd? That looks like there's legitimately 7 people there?
Halfway through the game, there was more, but yeah, they did have a record-setting crowd yesterday. It was like 33,000.
33. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd add that in there because the sign reminded me to bring it up. But so we'll go back to the spring game. Another position group that I felt like that played really well was the defensive line. Jeffrey Johnson, I called him out as far as my top defensive performer. He played pretty well. I think he had a sack, he had a few tackles. They were getting some good pressure. The defensive ends, Stripling, Downs, they were really working hard. I feel like, Brandon, you've been really high on Stripling, and I feel like he's really coming into his own. He had, 4 tackles for loss and a pair of sacks. I think Ethan Downs had a couple sacks as well. They played very well, and this was supposed to be a down year for the defensive line, and it very well, there might not be a drop-off. There might be an improvement from last year. Jose, what do you think?
So Ethan Downs, to me, solidified one of the spots on the edge. That dude was a game wrecker for the white team offense, and he just made everyone's life hard, from Dylan Gabriel's or whatever quarterback was up back there to the offensive lineman that was in front of him. It was just impossible to keep him from getting to the ball, which is a good thing to see from a guy on the defensive line, because these guys get tired. They're battling with someone pretty much hand-to-hand combat, and then they have to go, if the running back is going the other way, they have to chase him down. They could easily just call it a play, especially in the spring game, and say, all right, then play's over, someone will get him down there and give up. But he didn't give up. He forced 1 turnover. He punched the ball out in a fumble to force a fumble. I can't remember his specific stats, but that dude pretty much was always, his name was getting called almost every single defensive play for the red team. And then with Stripling, he did have a great game. I think Reggie Grimes also had a good game. Maybe not to the same stats, but I think that's still a battle that'll be ongoing, and maybe those two will be switching back and forth during the early part of the season during non-conference to see who's going to get the nod for the number one spot opposite of Ethan Downs. And then the interior of the line, Jeffrey Johnson definitely looked really good. I think he made Javonte Barnes' life difficult to try to get any yards down the middle of the line. And Javonte Barnes definitely got a couple, but they were always very much earned yards. It wasn't anything easy. Like 2 or 3 yards looked like he had to just put all of his effort in to do that. So I think Jeffrey Johnson's definitely going in the right direction for the interior of the defensive line. I don't know. I think just overall the defensive line should be just fine. I don't know why anyone would have thought that this is a down year. I know that we lost a lot of talent, but Jalen Redmond was still doing what he does. I mean, he was still causing havoc during pass plays. Like I said, Jeffrey Johnson was just an absolute beast in the run game. So this defensive line will be just fine and maybe even better because of the coaching that's there now.
Yeah, I think we talked about it off record, off camera and stuff before we started recording. I think that Marcus Stripling, as it is right now, if week 1 was next week, I think Marcus Stripling is currently the guy opposite Ethan Downs. I think he had a hell of a spring game. As Brett mentioned, 4 tackles for loss. I think he had two sacks at least. Kind of all over the place. Grimes did have at least 1 sack. I know going back, I'm thinking of. I know for sure he had 1. A guy who I've not really been super high on in our defensive line breakdown, and Jose kind of was, at least higher on him than I was. That kind of shut me up yesterday, and I thought I had a pretty good game. I thought Jordan Kelly was very good. He's in the backfield. He's, being disruptive. He had a better game than I would have anticipated. I think there was 3 or 4 plays where he didn't get a sack, but he got right through right away and made the quarterback scramble and, have to try to make something happen. I thought he had a pretty good game. Jeffrey Johnson, obviously. But if you're talking about D-line at the moment, I think Marcus Stripling starts opposite Ethan Downs. And I don't really know between Jeffrey Johnson and Jordan Kelly. I think they both played well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Redmond, clear-cut starter there as well. It's going to be who's going to be. Is it Johnson? Is it Kelly? I don't know. It probably just depends on the matchup. But, I mean, overall, the defensive line looked really good. And kind of an overall theme is I felt like the defense was finally not afraid to tackle. It seemed like that they were pretty confident. They could make open field tackles. They were hitting, things like that. And someone that I saw trot onto the field to be a starter, and a lot of people were excited about him, including myself, is Jaren Kanak. I saw Kanak was a starter, or at least if he wasn't a starter, he played in the first series. Just seeing Kanak on the field, that kind of screams to me that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he won't redshirt. Maybe he's going to have a role this fall. I think in an ideal scenario that you probably would try to redshirt him, but probably with the depth and everything else that they might play him this fall. Shane Witter played pretty decently. Deshaun White, I believe it was Deshaun White who blew up Javonte Barnes. Hit
first
him
carry
hard
of the game, I think, for Javonte Barnes. Deshaun White, pretty good. Yeah,
like welcome to Division I college football.
That was Toby Rowland's call exactly. It was like, welcome to college football, Javonte Barnes. Yeah, Deshaun White gave it to him there.
Yeah, I didn't even hear Rowland say that, but yeah, I mean, it's welcome. Stutzman, he's the best tackler that this defense has as far as the linebackers go. I mean, in open field, Stutzman looked really good. I mean, you can just tell that there's a difference. And granted, I'm trying to not overreact. It is a spring game at the end of the day. It's, a glorified practice and not a real game. But it just seems like the linebacking core is extremely strong. Granted, who's the head coach now? It's Venables. The linebackers look good to me. Brandon, what do you think on that group? I'm pretty excited with what we saw.
Linebackers for sure look good. Jaren Kanak, I don't know if he's going to start, but he's definitely going to be a guy. He's not getting redshirted. He's going to be a major factor into this defensive rotation. If not as a starter, he's going to be there. But I feel like we knew the linebackers are going to be kind of good. We were all very confident in this linebacker room. I thought Kip Lewis even showed some flashes yesterday. So yeah, the linebackers I'm not worried about at all. I'm quite confident actually. A guy that kind of stood out to me, guys, and we've talked about it for a while. As far as the other safety spot goes, we've all kind of penciled in Key Lawrence as a starter, whether it be safety or somewhere else. We talked about Billy Bowman as a starter. Justin Harrington, guys, kind of had a pretty decent game, a sneaky good game that we haven't talked about yet. But I think he showed some flashes. He's big, obviously. He's fast. He's moving well. The fact that he punched the ball out at the 1 yard line is huge to me. He didn't really try to knock the ball out. He kind of just really solid form tackle, put his helmet on the ball. It came out. Ethan Downs recovers, turnover at the 1 yard line. That was Tally Walker's probably one bad play of the game.
That fumble was forced by Downs and was recovered by someone else.
Dude, that was definitely
Downs was on the sideline, or not sideline. Downs
recovered it. Downs
punched it out.
Play. No, Downs punched it out from Drake Stoops. At the goal line, it was Harrington.
Well, I don't think Justin Harrington had that amazing of a game. He had good flashes, but nothing to say like.
I was just watching the tape earlier just to make sure, but I'm Harrington punched the ball. Ethan Downs recovered. Downs did punch it out from Drake Stoops.
All right, then maybe that's one out.
A play where he has help, but at the goal line, I thought Harrington did. I thought Harrington looked okay. And Billy Bowman is the guy that I talked about in our preview as a guy that I thought had a decent amount to lose. And on the very first play of the game, Marvin Mims roasted him deep. Dylan Gabriel missed the throw, but that's a touchdown ball. And then Billy Bowman, he muffed the punt. And granted, it's a spring game, but I don't think Billy Bowman had a great game. I think Kendall Dennis played well in his stats. He got a pick, obviously. But I think Billy Bowman's a guy who has his work cut out for him as we keep going forward into the offseason.
I agree with the Billy Bowman thing, especially on the special teams. He muffed one, but he was struggling with getting that ball in his hands on every punt return that he had an opportunity for. He's definitely going to have an uphill battle moving forward. Like I said, I don't think Justin Harrington had that great of a game. I think it was okay. I think that's a good way to explain it for yesterday. Trey Morrison, I think, had a decent game, but there's no safety outside of Key Lawrence that was like, all right, that guy's pretty much in the right direction to take over the number one spot. I think that even though Bowman was struggling yesterday, he still almost got a pick in the first quarter.
Yeah, because of a drop pass.
It doesn't matter. As a safety, you take those picks no matter what.
Yes, I mean, you're not wrong there, but like
you're just in a bad position.
You're talking about the play where Marvin Mims was going across the middle. Yeah, He's wide open, and Dylan Gabriel put it right on him.
Yeah,
I mean, it just went through his hands, then it went off Billy Bowman's face mask. Yeah,
tip drill. I mean, that's probably one of the most important things as a safety. You're not going to get those clean looks at a pick regularly, and that's probably as clean a look as you're going to get off of a tip, off of a drop pass. But I do agree. I think red team cornerbacks overall just looked way better. Eaton made a great play on the ball for a pass breakup in the end zone. Like you said, Kendall Dennis had a pick. And I don't know. I think overall in the preview, we talked about who we thought was going to win. And my reasoning for saying white team is because they had the more experienced defensive backs on that squad. And they looked good, but I mean, clearly the red team had their number. The red team offense had their number, and there's going to be bigger guys that they have to play against, and they're gonna. If that was an indication of how the season could go, I think Kendall Dennis is going to be fighting for time as well as Joshua Eaton to get out there as a starter.
Could the door be open for my brother Jaden Rowe as a starter at safety? Is it bold to say that? Obviously,
I don't think it's crazy, but he would have to impress a lot in the summer because it's quite a bit of catching up for 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, if he would have came in and been an early enrollee, I think it would have been a little bit more of a realistic. I'm not saying it can't happen because it definitely could. No one really separated themselves, and Kendall Dennis, he's been someone that's been kind of forgotten about. I felt like last year didn't hear a word about him, but something we got to remember is his top two schools. Obviously, Oklahoma was one, but the second was Clemson. He was really close to going to Clemson, and now the staff comes over, and all of a sudden, what does he do? He plays pretty well. So he might be someone that might, certain players are going to really benefit from this new staff. And I think Dennis could be one of those players where he gets the right coaching. That's why he almost went to Clemson, and you might see him just explode onto the scene. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like he could definitely benefit from what Venables and staff are giving him. Overall, I was impressed with the red team defensive backs. Like you said, Jose, if you didn't bring it up, I was going to that Eaton breaking up that pass to Gibson in the end zone. I remember that one. Kenai Walker played quite a bit as well.
He got beat by Theo Weiss on the first drive of the game.
He did.
Which was good to see, I guess. I mean, I was curious to see what Theo would look like, and he really good on that one at least. That pass Kenai Walker for a gain to the 1 yard line, I think.
Yeah. So, I think overall the defensive backs were just fine. I mean, granted, we didn't see a score in our spring game of 35, 40 points. Is that good defense, or is that poor offense, or is it a combination of both? I think it's a combo of both. Also we got to remember that it was like 20 to 30 mile an hour winds, to kind of defend Billy Bowman. Trying to field punts in 30 mile an hour winds can be difficult at times, and something that he might have had in his head, and it might have been getting to him a little bit.
Can we talk about one other guy who I think we probably all thought impressed? You guys can probably guess where I'm going with this. Tolly Walker is one guy I've talked about who I think earned some playing time throughout the season. I wasn't very high on him. I didn't really think he would crack the running back room. But Jaden Gibson, guys, we've talked about him a bunch, I feel like, but he's got great size, great speed. Just the fact that 95-yard touchdown, those strides that he had in the open field, where he's clearly ahead of I think he could be a problem. He was targeted a lot. He's got a huge frame. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter every game or whatever, but I think he's a guy who gets 25 snaps a game, or he's going to get an opportunity to at least run deep or see something. I think Jaden Gibson is a guy who, like Tolly Walker, in my opinion, earned himself some time based off just the spring game.
Before I go to the Jaden Gibson thing, I do want to say one more thing about Billy Bowman, because we were critical of him right now. It is his first time, at least playing as a safety for Oklahoma, so there's still a little bit of a learning curve there. But you can't go out there and not look great, especially when you were such a highly touted athlete. He'll catch up. I think he'll be fine, but definitely didn't impress yesterday. Now on the offense, I do think Jaden Gibson's got a lot of promise moving forward. He's probably going to be coming in a lot of red zone packages because he is such a huge human being that Dylan Gabriel will just have to put it up in the air, especially if it's a smaller corner on him. Put that shit up in the air and just let him go get it, because he's that good. He's got great ball skills to go grab the ball. Now he did have a drop. I think that the drop was just because I think that was his first pass, his first target of the game. Probably some nerves that he needed to get out. First time he was in the Palace playing for real with a huge crowd. I'm sure there was a lot of nerves going into that for him. So I don't put too much on that drop. But the wide receivers overall look pretty good. Jaden Gibson definitely stood out. I think Dylan Gabriel's favorite targets for now are starting to come out a little bit, and he forced the ball a lot to Jalil Farouk, and that's why he put the ball in danger those couple times for intercept. Well, one did get intercepted, and one could have been intercepted. Marvin Mims is still doing his thing. I don't know how. I wouldn't say that right now. It looks like he's his favorite target, but Marvin Mims, when the ball is in his hands, he will still fight for every inch and get to the end zone and score as many touchdowns as he can.
Yeah, and then Theo Weiss looked good. I think it's huge that Weiss came back for this fall, because he brings a lot of veteran leadership. I think he finally can put it all together this year, assuming that he's fully healthy. He looked healthy. I think he's poised for a huge year because he's going to get a lot of looks. Gibson, even if he doesn't play a whole lot, he might be in one of those goal line packages where they just bring him in to do, throw a fade in the back of the end zone. Kind of like what I feel like a lot of teams have done to OU in the past years with the giant receivers and small corners. You just go throw it up and just play basketball basically and just dunk on them. And I think Gibson can do that. And so, I mean, it's pretty exciting to see. Just there isn't a ton of depth at that wide receiver room. I mean, there's good quality, but I feel like, you know, they all need to stay healthy this fall. But they look good. You know, the offensive line I think looked good. I mean, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't bad or great either way. I mean, they look pretty solid, and I think it's going to take a few more months of Schmitty and beefing up the offensive linemen, getting them into more of the shape that they should have been, and not doing so much yoga. That'll help them out quite a bit.
I think Tyler Guyton on the offensive line is a guy who played pretty well too, gave himself an opportunity. I think Wanya Morris might finally be taking that step too to solidify himself as a right tackle starter. Those are two guys that on the offensive line at least stood out to me pretty well. But another guy I want to throw a little bit of love to, a little shout out. I think Braden Willis is clearly your tight end one. It's not a loaded room, but I think Daniel Parker looked pretty solid in his snaps. He had a couple catches. We obviously know what he can do blocking. That's what he's known as. He's very proud of that himself. It's in his Twitter bio, talking about how he's the best blocking tight end in the country or something. But I think Daniel Parker showed some good flashes. I think he's definitely that tight end 2 spot.
I agree. Braden Will. Those two are the tight end 1 and 2. If Braden Willis can do both, right, blocking and catching the ball, and like you said, Daniel Parker's super proud of being a great blocking tight end, and that's why we brought him in. He's definitely going to catch the ball every once in a while, but I mean, he doesn't expect to have, you know, monster games as a receiver. He expects to be out there to protect for the quarterback or to create holes for the running back. So I definitely agree. I think Caden Helms just didn't get the opportunity to play, but again, he's a freshman. It's not like the expectations were super high going into yesterday. It's like I said, he had just the most to gain, nothing really to lose at this point, because the expectations aren't there right now for him to be a contributor. But next year, he will probably have to take over that Braden Willis spot to make sure that the offense continues to move with spreading out the ball from the outside to the inside.
Yeah, him and Jason Llewellyn, I kind of feel in that same boat. Just freshmen.
Yep.
I feel like we're not rushing either one of them. You know, they're there. We're good. We're solid at tight end. Just sit and learn, boys.
Yeah. So, no, I think overall it was an incredible spring game. You know, beat the attendance record that OU had by like over 20,000 people, which is incredible. The Mayfield statue dedication, all that stuff was great. I will say that I feel like the statue doesn't quite look like Mayfield per se. That doesn't really matter though. And I just overall just walking away from the game, I feel like there's a lot of hope, a lot of good things rolling. I think we found our guy with Venables, and there were a ton of recruits. A boatload of recruits were at that game in front of 75,000 fans. And I think that showing is going to pay more dividends than we really even think, because there's not another program out there that had that big of an attendance. And I think the recruits noticed it and will recognize it when they make their ultimate decision. I'm not saying that all of them that were on campus are going to be Sooners, but there's going to be a few that saw it. I mean, even I tweeted out Ruben Bain Jr. He's a defensive end from Miami, Florida. Didn't even go to the spring game. He just saw it. He said, "Oh my gosh, it's crazy there. I can't wait to get back there for this summer." I mean, so I think there's a lot of implications there. Do you guys have any final thoughts on the spring game and overall recap?
I think you hit the nail on the head when we were doing the preview about the quarterbacks. And I mean, like we said, Dylan Gabriel definitely put the ball in danger a couple of times, but there is a decent drop off between Dylan Gabriel and Nick Evers and Ralph Rucker and the rest of the quarterback room. So while I don't know if there's a transfer quarterback coming, I definitely think that 2023 is a time where we could get 2 quarterbacks, because we're going to need some depth. And Nick Evers will get better, but there's definitely going to need to be a lot of improvement coming to that room.
Yeah. Brandon, do you want to do your end of video challenge? I feel like there's a lot of things that you could make it this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one, I think I'm curious to see your comments on this too, guys. For you guys and our viewers, I'm curious for this one. But both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, for me, my breakout players, the guys that earn themselves time. I've talked about it all video. Offensively, it's Jaden Gibson and Tally Walker. I can't decide between the two who had the better day. Javonte Barnes obviously had a hell of a game too, but he's a guy I've been high on the whole time. I think he's going to be. I thought he was always going to be a guy who's going to get significant playing time this fall. So I'm not including him on that just because of that. But Tally Walker, I think, earned himself some time. Jaden Gibson did the same thing. And then defensively, Marcus Stripling is my guy who had, I think, the best spring game for any defender. I think he really put himself in a good spot to play with his 4 tackles for loss, a couple sacks. So I guess the individual challenge is who was most impressive to you in the spring game, both offensively and defensively. And I'm going with, Jaden Gibson, Tally Walker, and Marcus Stripling.
Was that you want to chime in or not?
I'm going to go with Tyler Guyton. I think he's going to solidify a spot as a guard on the offensive line. And for the defense, I'm just going to pick the duo for the red team at the corner position, Eaton and Dennis. I think they're putting themselves in a position to take over that number 2 spot for the corners.
Yeah, and then for me, I think offensively, I think it's the running back room. I think it's Barnes and Walker. I was high on Walker before. I'm high on both of them, but I knew Walker. I had a feeling that he would play really well, but I can't pick between the two of them. Defensively, this might be a cop-out, but I feel like the entire defensive line, with Jordan Kelly and then you've got Stripling and Downs. Those are the main 3, and Johnson, so the 4. They're all going to compete for snaps, but I think you're going to see a heavy rotation, and even Reggie Grimes. I don't know. I think it's just I'm excited because they actually look like they know what they're doing and they are being coached well. So I don't know. So I'm curious to see what everyone has to say. And we're going to do a ton of recruiting videos coming up this week. There was just a ton of kids. We're going to have to come out with multiple videos to discuss who was there, what the implications are, and we'll be releasing those later this week. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.